Hey guys, we are going live with Rais from Warner Law. He's gonna update us on everything going on with Erika Jayne and Jen Shah. So we'll wait on Rais to get in.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Sorry. Good. Sorry about that. I underestimated traffic, so.
That's okay. Traffic, you always get a free pass for traffic. Traffic and
Yeah.
weather.
Yes. In LA, traffic is the worst.
You know, it could be worse. You could be stuck in traffic at 117 degrees, like we are here.
That is true. That is absolutely true. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and sort of let them know, your background and all of that, just if anyone's new?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rais Mohammed. I'm a founding partner of my law firm, RM Warner, and we are an internet, e-commerce, social media law firm. We do a lot of work in the internet defamation world. We do a lot of work in the influencer world. And so we follow a lot of these celebrity cases, particularly ones about defamation, but anything about lawyers in particular. So the Girardi case, the Real Housewives cases, those kinds of things are super interesting to us. And so we have been sort of following the legal aspects of the Tom Girardi case, Erika Jayne's cases, and how they are intertwined, and these crazy facts about the fraud and cover-up of millions of dollars of plaintiffs' money that were supposed to go to, of all people, plane crash victims, which is just mind-boggling. And, we also follow stories like Jen Shah, who, was an internet marketer, or so she says, and she's now being indicted on some felony counts that could put her in prison for 30 years or cause millions of dollars in clawback payments to victims. So, we could start with either one. I was actually just reading up on Jen Shah's case. There's some stuff just a few days ago.
Yeah, I'm curious what contact solution she uses. I'm very curious.
Yeah,
that
so
is the biggest
crazy.
part of the case that I need to know.
This is crazy. This is literally, pun intended, a jail out of free card. A get out of jail free card, right? Is your bad contact fluid. No, it's interesting. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, recently Jen Shah's lawyers in her federal case argued that certain criminal charges, or rather evidence, should be suppressed. And we can kind of talk like the technical aspects of what that means. But in a nutshell, her lawyers are arguing that, look, my client didn't consent to a search, or she didn't consent to you talking to her, because under U.S. Supreme Court rules and case law, you have to be read your Miranda rights if you are arrested. And that way a criminal defendant, or prospective criminal defendant, in this case Jen Shah, knows that they are talking to the police, and as the Miranda rights say, anything that you say can and will be held against you or used against you in a court of law, right?
Right.
And it's interesting because the Miranda case actually comes out of Arizona, where I'm located. But anyway, the point is, her lawyers are arguing that she was given a sheet of paper that had the Miranda rights written on it. She was read the Miranda rights, but despite the fact that she was read the rights so she could hear them, I haven't heard that she had headphones on, that she signed a paper but didn't truly understand and consent to waiving her Miranda rights in writing, because her contact lens fluid was, her contacts were blurry. And
we need to know, maybe she'll get a sponsorship out of this to help pay.
Yeah, maybe Visine. Visine, if you're watching this is a great opportunity for some serious endorsement power.
Opportunity.
And you know what? Your money will go to pay towards victims of a fraud. I'm kidding. Maybe it will. I don't know. But no, this is a crazy. I've never heard this before. Creative lawyering at its best, I guess.
I mean, I was shocked. I don't even work in law, but seeing that, I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, that's insane to me that is the route they're trying to angle, but hey, I guess you gotta try what you can.
You got to do what you can, and it's interesting because, they narrate, and for the first time, we're learning new facts about the arrest from her point of view, right? What her lawyers are told. And there's a lengthy narration of the facts of the arrest, the legal arguments, but she basically says that, she was walked to the back of her car. She was placed in handcuffs. Well, actually, before this, let me go in order. She tells the story that she got a call allegedly about her husband, right? You remember this?
Yep.
And that she was on her way to go film an episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Yep. Gets a call about her husband. Then she decides to go home to see what was happening. And then she was somehow told to pull over. So she gets pulled over. And she gets told to, I guess, meet the officers where she was. And then she kind of narrates the facts about how she was arrested. So she's walked to the back of the patrol car. She's placed in handcuffs. They tell her that they have a warrant for her arrest. And she says, hey, I was confused and emotionally off balance. Personally, I think she's trying to get away. We talked about this before, right? I think she was ticked off. I think she kind of knew about it. And she's trying to get the hell out of Dodge. I think her husband probably told her, like, dude, you got to dip,
Well, that's my question, because in this statement, she says all of what you just said, but allegedly, like, in theory, what if that doesn't match up with whatever's on camera? Because, like, potentially, there was rumor saying that she said he was in the hospital for internal bleeding and he was doing all of that. Will that play a role in all of this? That's two stories.
Right. It certainly can. Right. So one of the issues in this motion, which was recently filed by her attorneys, when I say recently, it was June 14th. It's a 65-page motion, by the way, in federal court. And it goes through the song and dance. I haven't even read the whole thing. But certainly prosecution can come back and articulate facts that controvert her side of the story. Right? They can show video clips. One of the things that I thought was crazy, Steve, about this case, and just to go back a few steps, this case, after Jen Shah was indicted, it was kind of like merged with or connected with a case that's been going on since 2019 for the same exact fraud, right? We talked about this briefly. Yeah. So when people hear, oh, Jen Shah is involved in this fraud, well, the underlying fraud has been going on, like the prosecution has been going on for 2 years or more.
So she should have known at this point, right?
This is my point. I really feel like she knew this was going to come at some point. She either, neglected it, or she just declined to believe it. She didn't take it seriously. She thought, I'm too far removed, because remember, her name was not on any of these companies. Right. And at least as of like March or April, 4 people pled guilty to wire fraud on this underlying scheme. And so one of the things I caught for your viewers, I'll just tell them, and by the way, I'm happy to make this motion. It's public record. We can post it on the link and you or your viewers can go and read it. But there's a few key highlights. And her lawyers basically say, look, Your Honor, the government got this all wrong. And they're just making these wild allegations. And that, too, they got these facts from a unlawful search and seizure, which is from the Miranda, right? Mm-hmm. The lack of Miranda that they claim. But their lawyer claims, her defense counsel claims that there's 1.3 million documents in this case that the prosecution's produced, or defense has produced as well. And there's hundreds of electronic devices. I mean, this is massive scale. This is not small potatoes.
That's going to take forever.
Well, that's exactly why. So people were asking, hey, what's taking for so long? Like, when are Jen's lawyers going to drop the bomb? And the truth be told, a lawyer's worst nightmare is not knowing your case. So before the defense lawyers say a word, they did the right thing. They're like, we got to see the file. We got to investigate. She probably has 10 lawyers. I mean, this is defense lawyers are expensive, and this case is expensive. And given the risk involved, she's got to have a team of 5 to 10 lawyers and assistants dicing through, you know, all the evidence and all of the accusations. But her lawyers basically said, you know, Your Honor, this is a bare bones case and we need more evidence. Otherwise, you know, prosecution needs to dismiss this indictment. We don't think they have enough evidence to bring my client into this. And so they filed this huge motion basically trying to kick out the indictment and the use of any of the evidence. I don't know exactly what. Maybe we'll find out together here on this live. I don't know what evidence they claim, you know, Jen Shah uttered and what she said that they could use against her. Mm-hmm. But clearly they're concerned about something.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So in order to get through all of that evidence, I mean, this is going to take years, right?
Well, these big defense firms are pretty efficient because they get these kinds of cases. But yeah, this could take years to get through. There's kind of a catch-22, right? So criminal trials, you have a constitutional right to a speedy trial, so they can't hold on to this forever. That's right. One of the reasons why the prosecutors are like, let's go. And defense is like, pump the brakes, you don't have squat, dismiss this case. But yeah, it could, in theory, take years. Like the other criminal case that this was joined with has been going on since early 2019, I think. So
and then what did you say was the thing that alerted you that her defense team must think there's something? What was that? Well,
they're going through a big lift to fight very early on, which is what you do as defense lawyers, right? You give them hell early on. You want to fight for your client's position. Right. You don't want to give the prosecution even an inch. And so, I mean, 65-page motion, you don't just file because you think the client, you know what I'm saying? Like I think there's risk perceived here. You know, the detective, one of the things in the motion that's mentioned is the detective recorded the conversation with Jen Shah. And at some point, you know, the detective basically allegedly gave her like some sort of deceptive instructions, and that they basically interrogated her without telling her that they were going to interrogate her, which those things are said all the time. Those things are argued.
And all of that would have been recorded wherever it happened. So there's got to be a way to prove that wrong.
Right. And something else that's interesting, at no time, according to her lawyers, at no time did Jen Shah admit to anything. She didn't admit to committing any fraud. So that's why I kind of question, like, hey, you know, what did she admit to, if anything? And this whole my eyes were dry argument, what are we really afraid of?
Right. I mean, you heard it, so who cares if your eyes were dry? You heard what was said. So yeah, either way, that's like, it's a moot point at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, at some point as a defense lawyer, you want to keep credibility with the judge. Right. And it's like, if you're throwing these kind of arguments out there, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you really fear that there's something there? And I look, my position from day one is, I think she knew this was coming down. I think she thought she was far removed from the fraud. She made her money, and I don't think she expected this to happen. But I think she saw that there was an opportunity, that this was, you know, she could get in trouble, and she just wasn't careful, and she didn't do the right things. That's my personal opinion.
So now, if you were her defense team right now, what are you doing?
You know, I would have a team of people looking at every second of any Real Housewives video that she's been on during this time. You know, from the dawn of her appearance on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I would be talking to her friends, her business associates, Stuart Smith, right, and all these guys who probably know what was up. Like, I am really trying to find out what her risk level is in all of this. And of course, getting through all the evidence as fast as you can. You know, it's a tough case. It's a tough case for sure.
So, her next hearing is scheduled for October like 17th, 18th, around there.
I think
believe
that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. By the way, something to clarify. One of the things her lawyer makes a big deal about is that this arrest was a setup, meaning the phone call that she got, they don't even know who it was. They claim that she got a strange phone call from an unknown person telling her that her husband, and I'm reading this from the motion, a strange call from an unknown person telling her that her husband, whom she was unable to reach, told them to call and to tell her to head home. Minutes later, she received a call from an NYPD detective, which was extremely strange given that she lived in Utah, leading her to think immediately of the terrifying situation involving the individuals. Upon his arrival, Detective Bartos placed her in handcuffs, pointedly did not tell her what her charge was for, and then misrepresented her intentions. And they just walk through all the facts. It's pretty interesting read, actually.
So, again, this isn't adding up to what allegedly happened, the day that all this broke. Remember, things kept coming out. And who knows if all of that was true. But let's say it was. I mean, allegedly she had said on the bus that her aunt or somebody called and said that her husband's in the hospital with internal bleeding. That does not match up with what she's saying in this document. And if that is what was said, and they subpoena those tapes and see that, what does that mean for her in the case? Like,
this is detrimental. It's certainly detrimental to her credibility. It's something that you can always use. If this goes to trial, you can use it to impeach her as a witness, saying she's not a credible witness, her recollection of facts are horrible, or she's lying. And she made an affidavit to support this motion, to suppress evidence. So that's what the prosecution's going to do. If I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to say, you're a lying son of a bitch. I got you on tape right here. And I would play the tape in court. I'd say, what were you saying here? What were you thinking here? Is this really what you meant? And try to break her down a little bit. So, her lawyer tells a big story about, look, she was scared, she was confused. The detectives just said they want her to talk. In fact, they arrested her, and they caused her to waive her Miranda rights.
Okay. So, what is the likelihood that this court date in October is going to be pushed back?
So, what I would think on this is, I guess it depends on what happens between now and then. If there is more evidence or new evidence is always a basis to move a trial date or move things around. Like I mentioned earlier, I know that the defense, her current attorneys, they're worried about stepping into a case that's been going on. So there's all this evidence from 2019 that they have to get up to speed on. And there might be new evidence. Like we said, there might be something that hasn't been discovered in a documentary or in a recorded video or on social media somewhere, or a text message. And so, what happens between now and then will dictate that. But it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that these things could get moved around.
Well, another reason I asked that is it just so happens that her court date coincides with the Monday after BravoCon in New York. So all these Bravo fans are going to be in New York the weekend before her trial. So I'm curious if that goes on, if people are going to be able to go in and actually go to the trial, if it doesn't get delayed. But
this thing is so public and people are so riled up about this that who knows what'll happen. There was a question here. Somebody, should we answer this question?
Oh, yeah. If Jen's release terms were that she was not originally drunk. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think, violating your release terms is never a good thing, right? When you're a criminal defendant. I mean, let's remember that she's out on bail. I think it was $1 million bail, right? And she was, you know, she can't leave the state of Utah. And so again, you know, these are things that could just piss off the judge. I don't know all the terms of her release, but you better damn well make sure that you comply with all of those terms, especially if you're the one that's waving around, you know, the white hat and saying you're innocent. You know, you shouldn't be implicated in this.
Right. Whew. Well, I wonder if she will be at BravoCon, because she should be allowed to travel in theory, because her case is that weekend. So she could be in New York, right? Would they allow her to make, like, 'cause she could make money possibly by going to BravoCon. That could be something that she could use to pay any sort of restitution, right? Or these victims back. So would they be able to get her to go to BravoCon, do you think?
You know, if her release order says that she can't leave the state of Utah, she's going to need to get judicial consent on that. Yeah, so like you said,
even when her case is on a Monday morning?
Say that again?
Even with her case being on a Monday morning?
Yeah, even then, they tend to be pretty strict about this. And, you know, look, I don't know how this judge thinks. I mean, anytime you have a reality star in criminal court, it's, you know, the problem is judges are concerned about the jury pool getting diluted and,
right.
You know, or influence, that this is such a famous case that you can't get a neutral set of jury members to actually decide the facts, right? Because people are passionate about Real Housewives, and they feel strongly one way or another about Jen Shah.
Absolutely.
You know?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I am very excited to see what happens moving forward. In the next steps, like, do you anticipate more information coming out, or do you, oh wait, Jerwin clarified. I believe her release terms were that she can only travel between Salt Lake, New York, and DC for court-related proceedings.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
In DC, it was because she had lawyers based in DC.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that because the DOJ initially, I mean, this is being prosecuted by the DOJ, so that it's probably got the DOJ attorneys from DC probably want to interview her or do other things there, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I think in terms of what comes next, I mean, in response to her defense motion, we might learn some new facts about the arrest, about what happened, about the dry eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What if she wasn't even wearing contacts that day? We don't even know.
You know, that's a great point. Imagine if they get, like, you know, some records that show that she hasn't worn contacts for years, that she had LASIK surgery or something. Like, I mean, who knows?
That would be wild. That would be wild. Well, so now that we've wrapped up a little on Jen, actually, and for anybody that's watching right now, also you can submit questions, and we'll go through those at the end after he finishes his updates on Erika, and we'll try and get to those as well. So go ahead. We'll start on Erika now.
So Erika Jayne, you know, it's really interesting because what happened last week was her lawyers filed a motion to withdraw from her case, right? And this case is the bankruptcy proceeding, which is intertwined with the fraud case, because the allegation is that Tom Girardi, her now ex-husband, I guess, basically funneled money through some of her companies, right? And that they filed this fictitious divorce in order to just ascertain title to these assets that are all fraudulent, right? That they obtained fraudulently. So her attorneys filed a motion to withdraw. And why this is a big deal is because the attorneys specifically said in their motion that, look, the relationship is irreconcilable. You know, that the relationship is not salvageable. That, Your Honor, I mean, they're asking the court for permission at this point. We need to get out of this case.
Right.
And usually usually when that happens, it's one of two things. It's either one, you don't have money and your lawyers are pissed because they thought you had money and you can't pay for what's going to be a massive defense expense. Or number two, they learned something that caused them to question their client's position in the case. Now, what's crazy is 2 days later, they withdrew their motion to withdraw from the case. And so there was a question from Courtney. Hi, Courtney. Why did Erika's attorneys flip-flop? Exactly. So I can speculate a little bit, right? It could have been as simple as money. It could have been as simple as money. It could have been like, hey, your accounts are frozen. You don't have access to this stuff. We're not going to get paid. And then boom, 2 days later, she comes up with the money. It's never all of a sudden. So we can safely assume that there were some issues in the weeks before. But the fact that they're now back in the case, I think, tells me that, you know, they've resolved this and, you know, they're going to fight full steam ahead, and that it probably was a money issue and not a credibility issue. Because what can you really do to rehabilitate your credibility with a lawyer? Like, I'm speaking personally. If I know my client's lying about something or hiding something, you're not going to come back to me and say, oh, I changed my mind. You were right. I screwed up. I'm out. Like, see you later. You lie to me, you can lie to the judge, you can lie to the jury.
And I wonder, I mean, to me, it was just so interesting. The timing of it was right around the documentary coming out. It probably, like you said, it was probably money, but with it being around that time, it felt like it was more scandalous than it probably really was, because that documentary had just come out. The salacious documentary, you know.
And I'm honestly, I am concerned. I mean, this is one of the things, when I represent high profile people, I am like, for God's sake, stay off the radar. For God's sakes, don't let anybody. But if somebody does a documentary about you, you don't really have much say in it, right? If you're not being interviewed. But I am seriously concerned, because I was reading some of the quotes that are like being given, and they seem pretty damaging to her claim that she had no knowledge of what was going on. Like, they're very, very concerning.
Yeah. My question from the documentary, so like they did bring up her being secretary on these companies.
Right.
With her being listed as that, could that just be a vanity title, or in order to be in that role, you would have to know what's going on?
There's some implication by the fact that you're a corporate secretary, you know, that you should have known that the secretary's role specifically deals with documents, you know, and managing the company's documents. But the truth of the matter is, people appoint secretaries, although they should never do this that way. They appoint friends and family as secretaries of their, you know, corporate secretary, which is an official position, that don't know what they're doing and have nothing to do with the business. That does happen. I mean, in reality. What I'm concerned about is, allegedly, I don't know if this is a proven fact, but my understanding is Erika has received, like, her companies have received $20 million in loans from Tom Girardi's law firm, Girardi Keys.
Right.
And she may have even taken a piece of fees improperly from a settlement. Like, you can never fee share with the non-lawyer. So if she got a piece of a fee, the question is why? Why on earth would you get a piece of a fee ever? Right. You would only get what your husband, who's a lawyer, gets. Right. There was a good question here by Wendy Beth. Hi, Wendy. Do the
she meant
feds?
She meant feds, yeah.
Do the feds have enough to be able to order forensic accounting of Girardi Financial? Yes. Let me see. Plus Erika personally. Yeah, I think
accounting of Girardi Financial and Pretty Mess entities plus Erika personally. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think, I mean, look, particularly if this is in a bankruptcy proceeding, which it is, when you say we don't have liquidity to pay back these legitimate creditors, 100%, they're going to be up your ass with accounting. I mean, there's no question about it. This is another thing that everybody should remember. Tom Girardi was sued by his own clients what, 4 or 5 years ago relating to the settlement, at least 11 or more $million worth for one person. And that plaintiff won that lawsuit. Tom lost. So it's a proven fact that he owed this money at that time. What the hell were you doing, Tom? Like, another plaintiff comes out and says, again, this is, you know, this is an accusation, but personally I tend to believe it. The former client comes out and says, hey, Tom approached me about him putting this money into an investment on my behalf and then paying me a stipend every month. You don't do that kind of stuff. You pay the money to your clients. You already got rich. You know, you invest your own money.
I don't want to be responsible with anybody else's money but my own.
Right. That's hard. That's hard enough to do, right? Being responsible for your own money is hard enough. And the level of fiduciary responsibility. So most non-lawyers don't realize this, but like when I take a case where insurance or some third party is paying me money and I have to cut a check to a client, it goes into a special trust account. And every month that has to be reconciled. And if I pay $1 out, it gets reconciled. How on earth at these large sums of money do you get away with just on a spending spree and diverting money? Like, you can't do that. You know what you're doing is wrong. You know, there's no question about it.
So when you say it gets reconciled every month, who's reconciling those dollars? People from the firm or in like a like a separate party?
So what happens is under pretty much every rule, every state rules of ethics governing lawyers, you have a obligation, you meaning the lawyer who owns the firm, and usually in larger firms, you know, some managing partners are named, but a lawyer has a fiduciary obligation to conduct that internal trust accounting, right? So that the numbers match up. So again, if we paid $10 for postage, we know whose portion of the trust it came out of. Because usually you don't just have one client's money in a trust account. You have maybe 10, 20, 30.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought 100%. It was everyone had their own trust
account.
No.
It's a hodgepodge
account.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's a ledger. And in that ledger, it's, you know, Steve has $1 million. Katie has $500,000. And then you have to disperse that money immediately. So usually there's creditors. So if you were in an injury case and I owe a doctor of yours money, I have to disperse that money. Then I do an accounting. This is how much went out. Here's what's in the ledger. Standard stuff. Anybody who's ever done contingency cases knows this rule up and down, left and right. There's no question about it.
Right.
So how on earth do you get away with, for so many years, screwing that accounting and trust accounting up?
They kept referencing in the documentary this Justice so-and-so that he kept blaming it on. Like, I want my money, but like, so the guy kept saying like, I need my money. And allegedly Tom had said, well, Justice, let me just make up, Justice Smith, I forget what his name was, said, you know, he doesn't want you to like spend all your money and all of this stuff. This justice that I guess oversees it, what is his role in all of this? What is he supposed to be like a third party that can just keep an eye on this money or something? That's what I didn't really understand his role.
So usually what happens in these kinds of cases, particularly where it's in bankruptcy, you have a trustee appointed who's a third party person. Sometimes we confuse them with actual judges, but they're not really judges. Sometimes they could be. But a trustee is appointed who's a third-party fiduciary and takes control of the money. They take control of the claims. They get a list of creditors.
Oh, so this is prior to the bankruptcy. This is somebody like before.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear, you know, when that was and what it was about. But, you know,
while you're talking, I'll look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. What I could tell you is, you know, if this, for example, was related to his 2017 or other lawsuits by victims who were like, hey, pay me my money, it's possible that there was a judicial freeze on the account. You know, it's possible, but it's kind of a funny excuse because the only reason that freeze would be in place is so that that money doesn't disappear or get abused.
Right. And well, I guess I'm gonna look up real quick to try
Sure.
and get like the actual facts. But I remember in the documentary, this guy kept saying like he doesn't want the money. You're a young kid. He doesn't want it to be just gone so quickly. So that's why he's only allowing you to have so much at a time. Even though, is that even his role to be able to say you can only have so much?
I see. And when you say, is it his role, do you mean like Tom's role or the judge's role?
The judge, the other justice person,
This is something that happens in cases where you have minors or you have people who can't fend for themselves. Maybe they're incompetent to some degree, they're incapacitated. So that can happen for sure. But, judges don't just do that, for, shits and giggles. Like they're going to require facts. They're going to require a hearing, and there's a process for sure.
Well, and allegedly, later in the documentary, this justice that was trying to protect him allegedly from blowing all the money said, I had no idea Tom was saying any of this, and I had no part of that. It was let me see if anyone else is bringing it up in the questions.
Wendy had a question.
Yes.
So the divorce doesn't protect her, right? Because these allegations occurred while they were married. Yeah, I mean, the allegation, regardless of even if they were married, if it was post-marriage, was that there was a conspiracy, that they were working together. And certainly, that this marriage was a concoction to further the fraud. That's what's interesting about that allegation. And that's why the divorce won't protect this fraud investigation and the prosecution.
Will the victims ever... Oh, shoot. It wouldn't let me share this. Hold on. Is it illegal for him to invest other people's money without special certificate or license?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. To play financial broker while being an attorney is a dangerous, 100% dangerous thing. Could he personally actually invest it and play money manager? He would need all of the requisite licenses. He would certainly need at least that. And there's a lot of consents he would need, and he would have had to get a bunch of boxes checked. But this is stuff like experienced lawyers just don't do. And the crazy thing about this, Steve, is that this guy was a successful plaintiff's lawyer. This is not some guy from some podunk town who made his first million.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dude who's made tens of millions of dollars.
I was thinking about this, and the irony... Yes, Justice Pinelli. Jerwin, thank you. Justice Pinelli was the name. I'll look that up now. I was thinking about this, the irony that he had a famous movie made after the famous case of Aaron Brockovich, and now he'll probably have a famous movie of the takedown of him. Like, it's almost his own Erika Jayne himself, where he has his Tom Girardi that everyone thought he was, and then a Tom Jane essentially was his alter ego behind the scenes. And I just find that to be, it's crazy. Justice Pinelli. Let me look that up. We may have to come back to this because I'm just having
no worries. I'm not familiar myself with with what happened, but this is definitely good food for the next opportunity to chew on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. There's some others. I
can only see the question for some reason. Maybe it's pinned there. I don't see the other comments scrolling.
Try swiping it up and down. That should be able to get more comments, or get you back to seeing the comments, I guess. The next question is, what about his partners? Are they liable?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I know that the law firm representing victims pretty much went after everybody. And whether, I don't think there's been a factual determination that the entire law firm is off the hook. But I do think there's been enough evidence to show that Tom was the problem. So I guess to answer your question, I don't think the law firm is off the hook. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, if there is any sort of order that precludes liability from accruing to Girardi's law firm. But again, this guy's a named partner, right? He's an equity holder. And my argument would be there's just no way that the entire firm should be found not liable for this. And this dismantled the entire firm, as far as I understand. I think this basically just put the whole office in a mess.
Sherwin said Pinelli was the victim's family former mediator. Tom said Pinelli was in charge of giving him the money to give to the victims, but when asked, Pinelli had no idea Tom had said this. And I have an article. It looks like, to settle the Rugomez family's case against PG&E, Girardi and the utility agreed to arbitrate the claims before retired Supreme Court Justice Edward Pinelli. They ended up reaching an 8-figure deal in January of 2013. Rugomez said a few months later in April, Girardi told her he was worried. The lawyer claimed Pinelli had told him heartbreaking stories about lottery winners who went broke after being lured into bad investments. Pinelli, Girardi told her, wanted him to help manage the funds so this wouldn't happen to her son Joe. Girardi then recommended that Rugomez let him invest a large portion of the money in a high interest account. Wow. So he was overseeing an arbitration. The arbitration case? Is that what that all?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would love to sink my teeth into this because it's a really interesting question, and I am curious to hear what that was about myself.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll set that up for the next one. Okay. Will victims ever get money, though he's claiming he's broke?
Yeah, this is where the courts come in, and that investigation has to conclude on where the assets are, what's left, what can be liquidated. I have a feeling everything's going to get liquidated. I have a feeling Erika's going to have to liquidate assets as well, because, again, this sort of sham loan that allegedly Girardi Keese made to Erika's business, I think that's going to be unwound. It's just so sad, plane crash victims. It's so sad. This is not lottery money, I can assure you that every single prosecutor, plaintiff's lawyer, and judge involved in this is just ready to sink their teeth into whatever money they find.
Ugh. Will the discussion surrounding his mental decline have impact on any of his previous cases and their outcomes?
It might. I think, usually your incapacity to manage yourself or manage your money is as of a particular time. And so I think this is just now, the allegation, was it Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's? I can't remember.
Alzheimer's, dementia, yeah.
That finding has to be as of a particular time. And so, sure, if they said he's had this, we believe, for 10 years, maybe. But I think this guy was being douchey for a long time. And I think, again, think about it. You have to actually think in a very calculated way to tell one of your clients, oh, let me invest this money for you. I'll pay you the interest. This is risky for you to take it once.
And he probably wasn't even investing it. He was literally just taking it, hoping that they'd be able to hopefully replace it later, right?
Right.
I mean, that's
Right,
my thought process of what he was doing, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. To me, it doesn't sound like somebody who's got Alzheimer's, serious Alzheimer's or serious Parkinson's. And again, you're not a solo practitioner. You're surrounded by other lawyers, support staff. Wouldn't somebody have said something like, "Oh, this person's off"? Like, would you let it get to the point where they're embezzling millions of dollars allegedly?
Did you watch the documentary?
I haven't. I definitely need to.
Oh, you need to. I was hesitant. I mean, I was going to watch it no matter what, but when I saw the preview for it, I was like, this looks kind of like low budget. It's probably going to be just everything we already know. No, yeah. It's actually really well done. And a lot of the victims, highlights the victims more than it does them even. And it gives so much story that I think you should definitely dive into that as well. Like I think it's fascinating. It shocked me, to be honest.
No, I'm definitely going to watch it. I think it's on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so
Housewife and the Hustler.
Housewife and the Hustler, that's right. Yeah, I read commentary, just like some quotes that were made in it, and I'm just like, oh my God, this does not sound good for either of the two, but certainly not for Erika. Like, this is just bad news all the way around.
And then the other thing I remember seeing was, or I don't remember if it was in the documentary or if I was reading it, because of his Alzheimer's and decline of his mental health or mental state, allegedly, the bar can't disbar him. That's on the back burner. And they also, going back, sorry, that also triggered a memory of what you were saying earlier. Why weren't so-and-so looking at this person looking at this person looking at it? They mentioned in the documentary, like, oh, this person in power is Tom's friend. This person in power is Tom's friend. This person's Tom's friend. Like, everybody was Tom's friend, or he had this power allegedly over all these people. And so I'm wondering what that's going to mean for the greater group of people that maybe turned a blind eye. Once they get through that, will they go after more people, do you think?
Well, 100% they should. What I read recently, just as a few days ago, and I have yet to confirm that the State Bar of California actually said this, but what I read was that the State Bar of California admitted that its investigators mishandled years of complaints about Tom.
They did. I saw that too.
That is a gross miscarriage of justice. Like, I think those people should be prosecuted, because that's your entire function as a bar agency, is to protect the public from unscrupulous conduct by lawyers who are not able to protect their client. That's the whole point. And so if complaints are coming to you and they're getting thrown out without even being investigated, I mean, that's crazy. I would love to know more about that and talk more about that. I mean, what I read was that some of the investigations by the Board of Trustees, which kind of oversees, the State Bar of California, that there were mistakes made. I mean, I'm reading a quote, revealed mistakes made in some investigations over many decades of Mr. Girardi's career, going back some 40 years and spanning the tenure of many chief trial counsels. Mind blown. I think
they had said when the bar admitted to mishandling those, they said they are going to be restructuring their whole system because of this. Allegedly. I mean, who knows if who's going to hold them accountable, I don't know, but allegedly they're going to make changes because of how his stuff was handled.
It is a systemic failure at such a high level here that we're talking about, that I am just eager to really learn the facts of, how does a state bar with many, many employees and investigators and lawyers of many years of experience, many of whom are prosecutors, how do they just not look at this and not say, hey, guys, we need to look at Tom. This is the second or third complaint this year we've gotten about his accounting practices. That's bizarre.
I wonder if, like, when they were getting these things, it was like a nudge, nudge, hey, you know, tighten up a little, because if Tom allegedly had as much power as he did, I wonder if he was getting heads up about these things, but not actually getting punished. You know what I mean?
Look, I mean, isn't it true? Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't we know that Tom was playing sugar daddy to a judge and paying for her plastic surgery? And
Trisha Bigelow.
That's right. Yeah. You know, we've got, by the way, what a name that is.
Not to be confused with Gigolo.
Yeah. But it's like, you can't make these facts up. Like, you just can't make these things up. No, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy how powerful this dude looks to have been. And for years, let me tell you something. If you bounce a check, you and your viewers may not know this. If any firm bounces a check from a trust account, it is an automatic audit by the bar. Automatic, which means they get your bank statements. These bar associations have subpoena power. They can get in and dig. They can ask questions. They can talk to your clients without you. Hey, did you get this payment? They can call the doctor. Hey, did this lawyer pay you? Because it's showing in his accounting that he paid. Like, how does this go neglected? It's crazy.
That's insane. Yeah, I'm blown away. The documentary shook me up a lot. I mean, because obviously reading all of this, things got, you know, a little repetitive, but putting all of these victims on and hearing them tell their stories, specifically Kathy Rugomez and her best friend Kim, who both had tragic things happen, and they both had him as the lawyer and they're best friends. Watching them timeline all of this, you literally are going to be mind blown to be like, how did this happen? And then you'll hear the voicemails. Tom would leave them on their voicemail about, and it was just such a abuse of his power, narcissism at its finest. I mean, it's crazy. It's dark. It's so dark.
You know, when you are bathing in this much money, literally, I'm going to use the word bathing. I was going to say soaking, but you're bathing in this much money. And you've been around for a long time. Everybody knows who's a practicing lawyer. It's a buddy system to some degree. It does come down to some degree when it comes to certain issues, who you know and influence that you can wield. And this guy was an old timer, right? He's again, head up some of the biggest cases against PG&E, had movies about his cases. It's just crazy power. There was a question by Bravo by Felicia. Hi.
Yes.
Do GoFundMe pages interfere with the case and or settlements? No, I think if somebody wants to do a GoFundMe campaign for victims, for example, and maybe that's what the question is, either way, it shouldn't. You know, GoFundMe campaigns are sometimes a great way to help people who are in legal problems or have been cheated, and it shouldn't interfere with anything, because what the court's going to do is they're going to look at what was rightfully owed and try to ratchet that back from whoever took it.
I don't know why this is not letting me share this one, but I like this question from Danny Blaze. If the money cannot be recovered from Tom, could the victim sue for money from the California bar based on this admitting their negligence?
Yeah, that is a great question, because usually there is a victim's fund or like some sort of account, but this is at such a scale,
right,
that I don't know. And maybe if to extend that question further, you know, can they actually sue the individuals who were negligent in the investigation?
Right.
Great question. I mean, great question. I might take a case like that. I mean, I might take a case like that.
Had the bar not admitted their negligence, I mean, that's just literally opening them up, I feel like, at that point, right? I'm trying to think like a lawyer, and like, you admitted you did something wrong, and potentially because of your wrongdoing, all of this happened. So, bar, you need to pay up, right? It could, maybe?
Possibly. Nothing's unlikely in this. I mean, this is upset enough people, and there's enough scrutiny that everyone's going to get tanked. You know, everybody who's a domino in this is going to get tanked, I think.
And then the next, someone's jumping back to Zickman Freud is jumping back to Jen Shah. In the case of Jen Shah, can Bravo legally air the footage of her arrest? They own it, right? So they should be able to.
It happened in the public, out in the public. Any footage that's out there, it's fair game. They could air it. They could, you know, they could give it to the police if they wanted to. They could do a lot of things.
Let's see. How is Erika still able to sell her clothes when the court said she couldn't?
Great question. She may be violating the order. I haven't read that order. Maybe somebody can educate us, or me at least, on what it says. But if she's out there selling she's selling her merch still out there?
I guess she's selling stuff on like website. I don't know if there's like an elevated version of like a Poshmark, I think, for like high-end stuff. She was selling that stuff before, and I remember them when they first like froze everything, she was told to stop, like she couldn't sell her stuff anymore either. But I don't know if that changed, like if they changed their ruling or what, but I don't know.
Interesting. For some reason, I'm not seeing the comments. It looks like there's a lot of good comments, though. I'm seeing them like partially. So I'm sorry, guys, if I'm missing your...
She's selling, yes, they can, let's see. She's selling her own clothes, Bravo by Felicia said. Hi, Felicia. Let's see. Documentary, I mean, more, I think there's a separate trust. I think that might be.
We should.
Here you go.
Oh, yeah.
One more. What does the conservatorship mean for a potential criminal investigation?
Well, the relationship of the conservatorship, if I understand the question correctly, the relationship of it to the criminal investigation is basically the conservatorship is concerned with two things. One, really preservation of decision making in a way that is going to most likely benefit the victims, right? So if a conservator is appointed because Girardi, for example, is unfit mentally to make decisions and manage money and take any of those actions, then the conservator is basically going to be controlled by whatever orders come out by the court, particularly in the criminal investigation, right? So a criminal judge or a bankruptcy judge or anybody who has a finding of fraud could essentially order the conservator to take action on any money or any decisions that they have the capacity to make decisions on. So it doesn't necessarily protect Tom from really anything. All it really says is, hey, I don't think I could go to prison for this because I can't establish the requisite mental state. I was just like, kind of like the guilty but insane defense. Mm-hmm. It's kind of establishing that, right? And it's in a crude way.
He was spotted today or yesterday. Tom was spotted out with a woman.
I saw that.
At lunch or dinner. Like, I know he's
with a woman that was allegedly his real estate agent, right?
Right. Yes. What, as a lawyer, should he be like literally staying in his home and not leaving?
Stony Point. He's spotted at Stony Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I in Pasadena. Yeah, I don't get this man, right? Like, if I have any control over my client, and he's my client, I'm going to say, stay the hell indoors. You know, there's people going to take pictures. Oh, that's Tom. Who's Tom meeting? Then that poor girl might be implicated. It's not like, what is this? Like, why are you meeting a real estate agent? Do you have money to buy real estate? Are you selling real estate? What are you doing? Or is this maybe a friend of many years? What are you talking about? Like, just, dude, bad idea.
I forgot. They also showed in the documentary his Zoom hearing where he said, they asked him about the money, and he said, asked if you have any sort of personal banking, and he said, at one point, I had 80 or 50 million in cash, and it's all gone now. Like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you just get rid of 80 to, well, first of all, how do you not know if you have between 50 and 80 million? That's like
his his rounding error alone tells you the kind of money that was going through this account, right? Anyway, I got to jump off here in a minute, but I think we have a lot more to talk about on this. I am going to watch the documentary, and
Please do. It was really well done.
I think, you know, the latest on what the state bar is saying, this is just recent, like in the past couple days, is really, really, really unfortunate, and it's really eye-opening that this large scale of a scheme, I'm going to just call it scheme, fraudulent or not, could go completely unaddressed. It is completely bogus that an association like the California State Bar, if in fact they knew, and it looks like there's an admission that things were mishandled, why and how on earth does that happen?
Yikes. Well, thank you again for your time. These are always so good and informative. I will be posting it. And, you know, when you watch the documentary, and if anything new comes out, let me know if there's anything that you want to bring up or whatever. We'll do this again. Or if there's another big news break, we'll, of course, do this again.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Right. Everybody that was part of this, make sure you follow RM Warner Law. And thank you, Rais, for everything. This is fantastic.
Thank you, Steve. Look forward to the next one.
Yes, have a good one.
See ya.